Okay, welcome everyone to another adventure of Lancaster Area Woodturners. John's not here today because he had some family issues to deal with, so you were very fortunate to have me here, so good luck to you. I don't think we have any new members to introduce, so we'll pass that agenda. We'll go through a little bit of business. We have some voting to do. Talk about dues, and then we'll get into learning what to do with those pieces of scrap wood you have laying around and some ideas and quick turns. So that'll be our demo. So we'll start with just a reminder that dues are due by the end of this meeting. So please get with Rick on any of those issues, and he can get you current and in standing. The other one we have is the proposed bylaws that Tom has been sending out to everyone. Hopefully everyone had a good chance to view that, and today's the day to finalize vote. We have, and I'll let Tom go through and give us a current proxy votes and where we stand with that, and then we'll get into our both online as well as in person in the room votes.
Yeah, so just a quick tally here. I appreciate all the, for those out in internet land, I appreciate all the replies to my probably annoying emails over the last week, but we really wanted to get the 51% so we could move this on so it's off the agenda. So at this point we have 25 proxy responses. There are apparently 18 in the House and 18, looks like 18 on the Zoom. So based on the numbers that Rick gave me for our membership, we exceed our 51%. So I think the vote will be valid.
Okay, so with that, do we have any questions about the proposed bylaws? If not, we'll proceed to the voting of them, both online.
I didn't get anything.
Okay.
How long have you been a member, Rick?
Only a month. I just joined last month, so.
Double check your list, Rick, make sure Rick Bittler's on there.
Yeah,
Because he hasn't been getting emails.
I didn't get anything either.
Okay, add his name.
Matt Jones,
Okay.
I joined last July.
Okay.
I haven't received one email.
Okay. Well, we'll fix that real quick here.
Get me your information after.
Again, suggesting that all the people that are on, sorry, can I just clarify?
Yes, sir.
You used to have 36 proxies, is that what you said?
25.
25 proxies.
Yeah.
And none of those are people online or in the room.
Well, that's Alan, proxy. Did anyone else in the room send a proxy to me? I didn't notice anyone else, but no, Alan just sent it.
So it's just one, and no one online sending the proxy.
And one on Zoom raised their hand too.
Okay, so other
Two.
than that,
Three.
take those two out and we add everyone that's in the room and everybody that's online, we get over 50 people. Is that correct?
Right.
Correct.
Over 51%.
Over
And
51%.
how many members are there currently?
There's currently 88.
Okay, thank you.
89,
I'm just trying
actually.
Yep.
Sure.
to clarify in my own brain because I thought this was going to be a very tough hurdle, given that we used to have 105 members.
Oh, yes,
And there's
absolutely.
not a proxy set up. You know what I'm saying?
That we'd even make it with that threshold with these numbers, so barely.
Okay. It looks like if, well, I'll just say we have the opportunity to get our 51% and get this passed. The two gentlemen that did not get those, do you want to, well, I can go over them very quickly what's being proposed. Okay. And you guys help me out here if I make a mistake. Yes, sir.
It seems like we're just creating the same high bar, but with a different mechanism to meet it. I'm wondering if the high bar is appropriate.
What do you mean the high bar?
The bar is 51% of members.
It is
right?
this time.
And it will be what when this passes?
25%.
Yeah.
Okay, we're very specifically understand. That was one of the things I was going over.
25% of the document. That's why I was.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
It's being changed from 51% both in person and or by proxy to 25% in person electronically or by proxy, and that's the summary version of that. So that's the one change that's being proposed. The other one is every member of the charter is entitled to vote at the regular meeting, may vote in proxy. A proxy shall be in writing and is irrevocable at the pleasure of the member executing it. Duration and the purpose of the proxy must be stated in writing if it's being revoked. Those are the two primary changes. Okay. Did I miss any more?
No, but I think Barry's reasoning was just to lower that threshold and also just to clarify some of the language that was a little bit more vague.
Right. Trying to make it a little more specific. Yes, sir.
Do we have a dollar number for spending that has to be approved by the membership in the bylaws?
We do.
Can you tell me what that dollar number is?
I'm trying to look it up real quick.
We have a what?
A dollar limit.
Dollar limit that we reach that you can spend before you need a vote from the membership. It was
I
like
think the change in the bylaws, I think, took it to 500.
500 or
Yeah.
600, yeah.
It was raised in the last bylaws.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gone from 300 to 500.
500.
If it's over 500, then it must go before the full group to be approved for spending. Up to that point, the executive committee, I believe, could make that
I don't want to
purchase.
throw a wrench, because I think we should pass everything you propose.
Yeah.
But I think we should do some serious thinking about whether 500 is just too low. It requires the membership to vote on a thing like a chuck purchase, which seems to me the reason we have a board is to put the board in a leadership position and to trust their leadership. We can vote them out. It's a representative republic, right? That's what we got going here. And I trust our leadership. I don't know that I personally feel like everything that because that pretty much eliminates anything but, a can of finish.
Yeah.
Right? Anything anymore. Rest is $90. I just think it hamstrings the board from just taking action on behalf of the membership.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And
No.
if we found that things were going awry, we could revisit it. But at least I think you should think about it for some next set of bylaws changes. That in today's economy, $500 is just onerous for y'all to have to get a quorum, who knows?
Right.
I just think it's too low myself.
No, I appreciate that. I think we'd definitely
and-
take that in consideration for the next round. This round is to get the current voting to a level that we can actually proceed with a vote, and then maybe that'll be the first thing that we can test out the new
But given we
bylaws.
don't talk about the bylaws except for when you want to bring something up for change, I just thought I'd preempt
No,
the next
appreciate that.
waiting period. and
Right.
say,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good
I,
point.
for one, think it's too low.
Thank you.
In the old board's defense, Thomas, you and all the other members received a copy of the old bylaws and the proposed changes. You had 3 months, in some cases 4 months, to make such recommendations for additional changes. Such were not received. Now.
Oh, I'm not putting the blame on you. I'll take the blame here for having not read carefully. Albeit, I didn't read carefully. I probably should have been more active when I was requested. I'm just saying now I'm here and there's an opportunity to talk, so.
Yeah, so just to address that, okay, even at the $500 now, if we need to take a membership vote, we only need to have 25% of the total membership,
Right.
which puts it in line with
Easier.
what's generally at one of the meetings. So we come in and we're saying, we're going to buy a chuck or whatever, a small lathe, and it's going to cost us $1,000. We can just take a vote here and it will pass and will be within the bylaws.
Yep.
Versus when those purchases have been made in the past, technically they weren't within the bylaws because we didn't have the 51% of the total membership. So that was the main reason.
Okay. No, I do appreciate,
Yeah.
we definitely will look at the dollar limit, and that's a good proposal for going forward. I thank you for that. So let's go forward with the vote, both online who have not already voted. If you could, I'm sorry?
Do we need a motion? Is that how that works?
Oh, yes. Do we have a motion to proceed to vote? We have it. Do we have a second? We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Then proceed with voting. If you are in favor, raise your hand. And Thomas, you could, and online also. 1, 2, 3. Are you going to take a snapshot?
How many you got,
Two-
Tom?
Two that aren't raised have
Tom,
both submitted
how many?
proxies.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4,
No, don't.
5.
Okay.
Okay.
So in the room, sorry. This is part of your aerobics.
Yeah. You didn't know it was going to be exercise. No, I'm voting too, by the way. Yes. Thank you.
So it looks like we have like 19 in the room, 23 proxies. And that's enough to carry.
You're now going to ask any abstentions.
We have 1, 2.
Just stay up there.
And do we have anyone who abstains or
Okay, there's
votes no?
one of, yeah, you gotta ask it one at a time.
Do we have
Is there
anyone
a
that
nay?
abstains from the vote?
Or an
Yes, there's an
abstain.
Abstention in the room.
Abstention in the room? Raise your hand, please, just so we have one, okay?
So you gotta vote to abstain on two.
Two. And how many were online?
How many online
Any
abstain?
For the yays,
Any abstain?
for the yays,
One abstain online.
right.
2?
Now one.
Tom, what was the count of the online yays?
What was the count of the online yays? It's that number minus 1.
It's 19 minus 2, 7.
It's 17.
Okay, so, yeah, so that's 34. We got 50.
Question.
Yes?
The people online that have already voted via email do not raise their hand. Is that true?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
So quick math.
We're getting there.
You know my calculator?
Yeah.
We also have
So-
8 who are not visible on the screen.
We had
They,
total of 58 yay, no nays, and 3 abstentions.
Out of 88, so that's
So it passes then.
So,
Okay. With
That
that,
would-
then the
that
motion
would-
does pass,
yeah.
and the bylaws have been accepted.
So that's a total.
Ooh, that's,
Thanks, everybody.
I'm done now, I'm leaving. No.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. Just a quick reminder that the next open shop is going to be on February 8th, and we'll be doing end grain hollowing lessons for those. That'll also be what will be our next demo for next month, so we can get a little more detail on tools, scrapers, and so on with Angela. Okay? So with that, we'll turn it over to Rick to do our demo.
Okay.
We'll do it at the end.
That's this Saturday? No, dude, it's the 8th.
The 8th,
Okay,
which is this Saturday.
okay.
So reserve the last 2 weeks.
All right. Well, I'm sure most of you guys are like me, and we don't throw anything out. Well, yeah, I know you're not like me. But we're wood misers, and we just hate to throw anything out. And in particular, you know, some of us that do a little bit of flat work, we end up with scraps like this, you know, that we made something. I don't even remember. Well, this was out of a cabinet that I was making. But there's still a lot of useful wood there, at least in my brain. This piece, maybe not so much. There's a lot of cracks in it. But this one might have to go to the fire pile, but I know I can get a piece out down here that I can make something with.
Scroll saw hurt.
Yeah, scroll saw, lots of different things. Or when we cut a blank out, you know, we got just a little scrap piece of holly. Had to stop and think what it was. But I end up, you know, when I cut out on the bandsaw, I end up with these little chunks of wood. And the rational person would throw it away because it's just clutter in the shop. I'm not one of those people. So I have a plethora of little pieces. And I like to use it up, and some of these things are just fun to do, and they make nice little gifts to give to people, you know, whatever. Or if you're into craft show thing, you know, doing the craft show thing could work for that. So none of the stuff I'm doing, I picked up most all of it off of YouTube, you know, watching, flipping through, because I wanted to find something to use up scrap wood. And so what I'll do is, well, I just did in my bathroom, there's a lot of arch work in it. So I had a lot of being attacked by the camera.
Sorry.
I had a lot of flat wood that wasn't usable for flat work, but it worked well for doing stuff because I didn't want to throw a bunch of cherry into the fire pit because I figured it could probably have a life as something else. So what I do is I'm able to get these little 3.5 inch squares. 3.5 works good for several different little projects. For making, yep, I forgot my bag that had the finished goods in it.
Gotta work fast, Rick.
You haven't actually made any of this stuff, have you? Rick?
Well, I figured I saw it on YouTube. I'll try it out, see if I can figure out how to do it on the fly. You know, but so these make great for mason jar lids. This is just a piece of 5/4 oak, red oak, that was left over from something. What? I don't remember. And then some walnut, and this looks like it's probably 6/4, maybe 8/4, somewhere in there. Again, it was just scrap, because I did a couple slab you know, a couple projects with some slabs, so these were just the leftover cutoffs. And the 6/4, 8/4, they make nice tea lights. And well, we'll see if it makes a nice tea light. Some do, some don't. Some start on the lathe and end up on the floor, but you know, at the end of the day, I usually have a couple of them. So what I'll do is I'll spend time in my shop just cutting them out, and then for the mason lids, the ones that I want to use for mason lids, I actually draw 2 circles on them. One is a 3.5 inch diameter, and the inner one is 2 7/8, I believe, which is the diameter of a standard mason lid, the ring for it. So that gives me just a guideline, and that's all I use it for, is just a guideline. But what I'll do is I'll cut up a bunch of them and make circles, because these are fun to make, and the people I've given them to have really liked them.
What is the order of cuts on making that into a lid?
Well, I'm gonna make one. So that's the one I'm gonna do first. Yeah.
It's an insert, right? It's not the lid. You're still using the screw top.
Yeah, I'm using the screw
So
top.
that's the insert for the screw top.
That'll go into it. And then I glue it in there with a little bit of Eileen's tacky glue. And that holds it in there. I don't glue the metal lid in, because that way it can be removed if it gets dirty or damaged and replaced with a new lid. Because the lids are made up of 2 components, the ring and the lid. But works out fine, and then you can just use your imagination to make whatever. I've seen a bunch of them where guys will make little finial knob kind of things to go on top, and I haven't done that, just because There's only so many hours in the day. And I haven't played with that yet. So,
Need some small scraps.
Huh?
I've got some really small scraps.
oh, I got plenty. So when I first started doing them, what I would do is I would draw out my circles, and then on the bandsaw, kind of round it around, sort of, kind of. But then I realized that it's a waste of time. Just cut them into squares. It's a lot easier and quicker than spending time on my bandsaw, because I don't want to change out the bandsaw blade. So I have a wider blade for doing the thicker cuts, and can't do 3.5-inch circles with the blade I have on my saw. Not very well. So just started doing them with just the square. And it works out fine. It's a lot of fun. The other thing is actually, well, so this is just a piece that I cut off of this earlier. And this will make maybe a coffee scoop. We're going to try. Coffee, tea scoop, spice scoop, whatever you want to call it. And so the scoop and then the handle, or the way I make them, it's a 2-part. So I can make the handle out of another scrap, or turn, because the scoop part's going to take about that much. So I could probably get a handle out of there, which the one I made earlier is sitting in the bag on my desk. So, and then the other thing that, just 5/4 or 4/4, scrap stuff, cutting them into little blanks. They'd be great for making pens. Or what I'm going to do tonight, maybe, hopefully, is honey dipper. So these are a lot of fun, and these the ladies like. I don't know if they use them, but they like them. So that's what I'm going to try to do tonight. So not that one. So for the mason lids, what I do is I just, like I said, I get it centered, put a center mark, and then I just jam it up against my chuck with the jaws closed all the way. And I do that for a couple of reasons, because I got to make a little tenon on it so I can hollow it. And with the jaws closed all the way, I can make the tenon on that side. So this is going to be the bottom. So the bottom goes, I go with the bottom in here.
I'm gonna scoot over one. Okay.
I got good.
Look at that. The other thing I like about using up scrap wood is it gives me a chance to play with different tools. Sometimes I play with the skew, and then I remember I'm not very good at the skew. And if I'm doing it with a skew, like doing honey dippers, if I say I'm just going to use the skew and I do about 10 of them, I get reacquainted with it and do okay. I'm not going to say I'm good with the skew yet, but still practicing. And the more time spent playing with the tools, the more I can go. So this is actually, it's going to be, it's a bowl grain, a side grain, or whatever you want to call it. Orientation, it's not spindle. So I'll be using my bowl gouge, but you could use a spindle on it, I guess. I don't know. And yeah. All right. Well, the other thing is when I'm doing these is I do turn at higher speeds because it's what I do. But turn where you're comfortable, I guess. I'm comfortable turning at a higher speed with this stuff. Makes the cuts go a little easier usually. Not always, but usually. So,
Well, I have face shield on.
yep. It's oak. So now I got it down close to round. To make my tenon, I just use my parting tool. And what I do is I come in on the chuck side of it and just run it just the width of the parting tool all the way down to just outside of the chuck. So that way when I open up the chuck, it'll be close to a circle. It'll be a little big, but it'll be close. And that's enough for me to hold the piece on while I do the hollowing and finish up. Well, I'll finish rounding it before I turn it. Actually, no. Where I chipped out. Where are we at? This way.
Yep.
So it chipped out here, and that'll get in too close to the inside. So I'm going to just scrap that one. Yeah.
Wait a minute, you don't like throwing away scraps. Can't you just turn it around and use the back end as the fat end?
I could.
You're betraying your scrap pile.
I know. I could try that. Let's see what happens.
Force you into anything.
Yeah, no pressure here. I'm not trying to
No pressure?
But I was told how important every scrap is to you.
All right. We'll try that.
What did Monty Python say? Every scrap is sacred.
Yeah. I'm going over here because my control's over on this side. Put my glasses on so I can see. That's better. All right. So, all right, so what I do is I take that down so it's just outside of the chuck jaws, a millimeter or two. Loosen the tailstock up a little bit. Except now I don't have my lines on this side. I'll try to do
You
okay.
have a lid there.
I know. So,
Carve the tops or decorate the tops in any way after you turn them?
yeah. And that's where it gets to be a lot of fun, you know, with spiraling tools, grooves, burning with Formica, painting them, staining them. It's just making them look pretty. And I have yet to make two the same because I get bored doing the same thing and, you know, just do different things.
Hey Rick, there are calipers in that red box in case you want to measure that lid.
Okay.
Just so you know. We want to see you do this.
Or I can just do
Save that piece from the fire pit.
Hey,
something like that. That'll get me close. Yeah. So on the lids, where are we at? What I do is with a drill bit, which is this size. I have no idea what size it is. It's the one I grabbed out of the drill box. Looks like it's probably 1/2 inch-ish. But what I do is measure the depth of it, the height, or the width of the rib, the lid, and I just put a flag on the bit. That way I know how deep to drill them, because it just makes it easier. Could do it all by tool, but I find doing it that way, and then I can just use my scraper and just go in, and I don't have to fuss with it. Because when I'm doing these, it's kind of like mini production. So I want to make as many as I can in a quicker time. So by drilling the depth hole, makes it easier for me to do that. So. And just run it in until it hits the tape. When it hits the tape, I can hear it, and then I know I'm at least close.
What's the speed for drilling?
About 478. Drill slower. And that's going to vary depending on what it is you're drilling, how big the hole is. There's a lot of variables. In smaller holes, you can go a little faster, but I generally 5 to 700 is usually about where I do most of the drill stuff. So, once I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on hollowing out, and I just use a box scraper that I made because I just bought some steel and made it. I ground an angle, and the specific angle is that one. And then I also cut a cutting edge on the side, so it just helps a little bit. And it seems to work. And with it, across the front, it's not quite 90. It's just a couple, instead of, it's not 90 degrees coming across this way, it has just a, I guess it's either less than 90, yeah, little less than 90, probably about 88 or so, just to give a little relief on the back side of it. So, okay, so now let's see if I can figure out where to stop. So when I'm doing these, what I do is I'll go in steps and come out, and then I measure with the ring to make sure I don't go too big. Because like I said, my line is typically, it's just a guideline. It's not where it's going to end up finishing out. So. So I've flattened it out down to the bottom of my depth gauge, and I'm almost. So my line wasn't too far off. I always stop before the line because sometimes my line is a little bit big, and then the ring doesn't fit real well. So I always like to stop a little bit before when I remember. Which sometimes my rememberer doesn't work so well. So, just trim a little bit. Alright, so right now I'm still just a little bit, it's pretty close, but on the rings there's a little lip that sticks out past the main ring part. So doing these, what I like to do is just put a little bit of a recess, just, was that maybe a 1/16 or so in. No, I didn't flatten that. Oh I'll flatten this before I put that groove in. Just to make sure that the lid, because when I do them, I like to make sure that you don't see the metal, that the metal is recessed inside of the wood. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot left over at the top. So you don't want to go in too deep, but you need to go in deep enough that you can bury the metal inside the wood. Or at least that's what I like to do. So, of course, when you do it how you want.
If you did go in, Rick, if you did go in too deep, you just have an overhang of the wood on the jar, right?
Well,
It's like you could speed up production if you weren't afraid of the depth, because you could just, if it was off by a little bit, who cares?
right, well, it's just like a bowl. If you go a little too deep, you have a funnel. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around to shape the top of it.
Okay.
And that's where we forget that, oops. And then you have a really neat disc of wood. Sometimes it has a hole in the middle, sometimes it just flies everywhere. Yeah. So. Okay. Just got to straighten up my wall a little bit. All right. Now my lid fits in there nice. What I like to do before I turn it around is I'm going to shape this bottom corner, because the bottom corner is going to end up right on my chuck jaws. So what I do is I just round this off and somewhat shape the outside. And then what I'll do is, well, I got to clean that up. It's a little yucky. I clean up the inside, I give it a light sanding, and then typically what I'll do is I'll use a little bit of shine juice, which is a shellac alcohol mix, and linseed oil. I was like, And what I do is I use that, I'm not doing it to make a finish, I'm just using it to seal the wood. So that way it's coated on the inside, so it helps to protect it from moisture and expansion contraction issues. And when I do that, or when I'm playing with colors, I just have a nice little piece of plywood that I just throw on over the bedways, so that way when it does drip down, not if, it will, I'm protecting the bedways while I'm doing it.
Rockler makes a rubber mat for gluing.
Yeah?
They're like 18-inch wide and about 25 inches long.
Yep.
I found those easy to throw on the waist to protect from splashing, stuff like this.
Yeah.
Or when you do wet sanding and polishing.
Yeah.
Those work great.
When I finish the back of a cabinet, I usually have offcuts. They don't get thrown away either. So they make great things, and this didn't cost me anything.
Modern art.
Yeah. So, and when that side gets yucky, you just flip it around to the other side. So.
Rick, does the dome on the flat lid portion stick up higher than the rim of the?
No, it sits flush. It sits flush with them.
Okay.
So when you put the metal lid, when the metal lid goes in, it sits flush.
Okay.
Flushish.
Not higher than.
It doesn't come up higher because on the inside of that hole, that portion sticks up just a little bit higher than what the outside does. Probably the difference in whatever the dimple in the lid is. Because the lids do have a little bit of a dome dimple, but it hasn't made a difference with what I've done. So, and the harder you screw it down, the squishier it'll get. So, but down on this curve, I just like to round that off almost down, so there's still a little bit of a flat spot, but not much. I guess it's probably maybe 1/8 of an inch flat on the bottom, is what I like to do. And then side. And this is a lot harder than just doing. Trying to stop and talk and think about what I'm doing instead of just doing. So, what I like to do is give the sides, it's kind of, you can maybe see that it, okay, there's my thing, just an indent because it makes it easier to grip it. And grabbing that versus grabbing a flat side, these are harder to grab a hold of and get a grip on than what I found with putting a little bit of a scoop out.
One thing I could suggest on this, having them round and using a router jig to cut flutes on the round lid, horizontal flutes, using your disc on the lathe for your spacing.
Yeah.
To get 5 or 6 flutes up there for nice grippy grip. Sometimes I should bring that jig. I don't use it anymore. Sometimes I should bring it to show people off.
Yeah.
Because cutting flutes without, it's basically, I think that mounts on your waist and
Yeah.
has a router built to it. You can do horizontal flutes
Yeah.
on the lathe.
You can do that. The decorating is decorating.
Yep.
On the sides, I found with the way I make them, I just put that little bit of a, just so that the fingers can grab a hold. And it makes it easier to open them. Even, the ladies that have used them have mentioned that it's easy for them to open.
Yes, Rick. When you were cutting that groove on the edge there, your chisel was jumping around.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it was poor tool engagement. And that, and with this being red oaks can be a little bit bitey.
Okay.
And a lot of times when I'm doing that, is I'll get it basically kind of semi in there, and then I use a carbide to finish it up, just because it's easy and
No,
quick.
I know from time to time I have bits jumping around, and I'm never quite sure why.
It was tool engagement. I'll figure it out eventually, maybe.
Okay.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
This is John. If you, I've noticed that the bevel was basically at 90 degrees.
Yeah.
To the tool rest.
I know.
If you reduce that to like 85 or less, you won't get those catches.
Oh, I know. It's one of those I'm trying to think and do, and I don't do thinking and doing at the same time very well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice having somebody else looking sometimes, and they can see things that you can't see.
So, and this lathe sits a little higher than I'm normally used to working. So all those things kind of play into it. On my lathe, I can knock them out in about 10 minutes, start to finish. But I don't have to think and I don't have to talk.
And you don't have annoying people asking questions.
Yeah. Well, at least you didn't say people asking annoying questions. So, and with red oak, to get a nice finish on it, takes a good bit of work with the sandpaper.
Yes. Also, if before you get to the sandpaper stage, before you even get to that stage, spray it with your shellac. Give it a sanding sealer, then you don't have as much of that ground.
Yeah. Because with that being the open grain that it is, it gets real grabby.
It's gonna grab.
And I didn't think about that. I didn't realize which piece I grabbed when I threw it in the bin. So usually, I also like to do my, on the sides, I just like to put grooves. Just using a piece of linoleum for mica, whatever it is, countertop laminate. You can get it from Lowe's, Home Depot, probably anywhere. Huh?
You get it from out of the dumpster.
Yeah, out of the dumpster.
Big pieces of it.
Or, you know, when you do a countertop, you always have leftovers, so you end up with scraps laying. Like I said, my shop is full of scraps. But this, just push it in until it burns. And I like the smell of it too. So that's pretty much getting the middle or the bottom and the sides. Then what I do is I just flip them around. And these are the Nova chuck jaws, and I found that 2 7/8 is as big as you can go, so that it'll still hold it nicely inside there. So that's the other reason why if I make my center hole for the ring a little bit too big, it doesn't want to stay on the chuck. And when I'm doing it. Sorry. I'm actually putting it not on the upper portion of the jaws, but all the way back against the plate. And on these jaws, it has a lower spot down along the jaws that will actually create the tension in the piece. So. And now it's just a matter of shaping the top and doing whatever you want to do. And this is where I never know what I'm going to do. I think I have an idea when I start, and then I usually end up not having that in the finish. Unless I'm prepping them to do like an acrylic pour, an acrylic paint pour over top of them to get the funky design things going on, then I'll just do a simple dome, just to dome it over so it's a smooth, makes it easier for doing the paint pouring. But with these, you can do whatever you want. A lot of times I'll do kind of an OG kind of shape. A lot of times it's whatever the wood wants and wherever my tool goes. Is kind of how I figure out what the shape's going to be. Unless I'm doing, specifically for that one type of lid. So.
How thick is that now, the finished point?
Oh, not very.
It's pretty thin then?
Yeah, because that. Where's my. Lost my ring.
It's on top.
Oh, there it is. So that ring, so is the whole inside is down to about that burn line, or close to it. So this,
So you were pretty close.
probably an 1/8 inch, something like that. I don't want to go too much deeper on that. And note to self, don't bring oak next time. But again, a lot of times with the oak, I'll finish it out with the scraper and then burn some lines on the top of it just to make it look pretty. So it's pretty thin. So with burning on the outside, it's going to burn a lot quicker because this wood's moving a lot faster. As you move into the center, it takes longer for it to burn because it's not moving as fast. But yeah, so that's how I do the mason lids. Of course, there would be sanding and then finishing or whatever after.
And you'll glue the ring in?
And then I glue the ring in with Eileen's tacky glue.
You did say that, yeah.
So then that just goes in. This one, just a little button top, because that's what I felt like. But on the top, you can do whatever you want. Use your router jig and make the flutes and do that kind of stuff, or using, like a texturing tool, which I thought I was going to use, but then I changed my mind. 'Cause oak does really well with the spiraling tool, but you have to have it sanded really well first. And I don't want to throw that much dust into the air tonight, because it would take a good bit with the open grain. For me. So somebody who has better tool control, maybe not as much, but not me.
What kind of glue did you say you use, Rick?
Eileen's tacky glue.
Oh,
It's a craft glue.
like a hobby supply?
Yeah, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, I think Walmart probably has it, but it's a hobby glue.
Just a one-part glue.
Yep, yep. And what I do for that is I just take and run it around the top and then just smush it in and then just hold it there for a few minutes and then it'll take care of itself. Mike?
What's your preferred finish?
Depends what I'm doing.
Well, if you're making those lids, what's your
With the lids, it depends what I'm finishing with. If I'm doing an acrylic pour, then I'll use a polyacrylic.
What if you're making an oak lid?
An oak lid, then what I'll do is I'll oil it. Typically I use Danish oil, and then I lacquer them. I like lacquer. It's easy to fix when you make a mistake with it, because lacquer will dissolve itself, so you get a little fuzzy or a little bump in it.
Doesn't the lacquer attack the Danish oil?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, like, when I mistakenly put lacquer on top of varnish, not oil, but varnish,
Okay.
Well,
yeah, varnish, yeah, because they're not the same chemical components. But the oil and the lacquer will go over almost everything.
How long did it take for the oil to dry?
Depends how much oil you put on it.
Because I've used that stuff once and it didn't dry for over a week.
So when I'm using the Danish oil, and I use the Danish oil both for a bunch of my pieces, just because I like the way it colors the wood. It highlights the wood grain well and doesn't distort the color.
Doesn't that have to be dry to put the lacquer on?
Yeah. So my platter that I brought in today, I did the Danish oil and I gave it a good soaking coat.
Yeah.
And you let it soak for about 20 minutes, and then you come back and you wipe it off.
Yeah.
If you don't wipe it off, it's not going to dry.
Well, yeah. I've done that, and it still didn't dry.
But, with buffing it
It
afterwards,
could have been something in the can that I had, too.
it may have been. I've not had that problem. Generally speaking, several hours after the Danish oil goes on,
Yeah.
it'll be dry. But before I lacquer them, I usually give them about 2 to 3 days in a nice warm area.
Yeah.
And I haven't had any issues with it not adhering. That's been my experience with it. And Mike, to go back to your question, I've played around with a whole bunch of different finishes, and
Yeah, me too.
I didn't know if you had a go-to that you like for that project or not.
usually the Danish oil, and then I'll lacquer them.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I'll make up a bunch of them and set them off to the side after I've oiled them. And then a couple days later, just set them up on little blocks. Because the inside with the shine juice, it's sealed. I'm not finishing inside.
Okay.
It's finished once it comes off of the
Right, you just
chuck.
leave that raw to glue, right?
So, yeah. So it has that shellac on it, but the shellac is just sealing the wood, but there's no, I'm not finishing
Uh-huh.
the inside of the lid.
Why don't you use that same thing on the outside?
I have. It's,
You like your lacquer finishes?
I like lacquer finish. I like the Danish oil, but I've used the shine juice and
It doesn't matter, right?
it doesn't matter to me. It's what I have on hand, and I have all of it on hand. So whatever day it is, if it's Tuesday, it might be lacquer. On Wednesday, it could be polyacrylic. On Thursday, something else. Because I haven't used it for a while, so I'll use that. And it also depends, a lot of it is the character of the piece I'm working on. If it's something that has a lot of really nice grain, not like oak. Oak is nice, but it doesn't get me real excited. But some of the mahoganies and some of the other woods, if I have really nice grain, I like to put a good oil on it. And sometimes I'll just finish it with a wax. And it depends on what it's being used for. So, but most of the time, this kind of thing is going to be in a kitchen area. So a lot of times you have grease and oil and moisture, humidity from the cooking environment, and the lacquer holds up real well to that. That's why most of your cabinets have lacquer finish.
Do you finish the interior before you glue the ring in?
Yes.
Does Eileen stick to the finish?
Yeah. Okay. It's a shellac finish. It's just the shine juice, just like shellac.
Yeah.
And the Eileen sticks to that, no problem.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Yeah.
And, it's going to stick to it, no problem, for several years. And if it comes out, you just put another dab of glue in there and stick it back in.
The assumption is you're putting this in and out of the refrigerator?
No.
So you're telling your people don't use this on the jar you're putting in the refrigerator?
Correct.
So just dry goods?
It's a dry goods lid. Because if you're putting it in and out of the refrigerator, it's going to do all kinds of bad things.
Right. You'd really need to seal it up.
Yeah. If that were the case, then I'd probably do an epoxy coating, encapsulation. But I don't want to spend that much on a mason lid.
Well, you could use a long oil, but you'd have to make sure you have a good piece of wood, not
Yeah.
good tight cream.
You can do it, and if you did it with an end grain round, it might be a little more, I don't know if that would be more stable or not. Probably not. Might be, might not be, I don't know. But no, I just tell people just, it's countertop. So people generally will just put stupid stuff in it.
Have you ever done any of these with burls?
No.
Got burl scrap flying around?
I do, but I didn't get that far yet.
Just because the grain doesn't move, right? So you
Yeah.
have to worry about
So the pieces of burl that I have are too big for these yet.
Just cut them in half.
Well, I will when I start doing something with it, and then I'll have the scraps that they may end up as a lid.
Then you don't have to do any decoration at all.
It could end up as a honey dipper too. So that's pretty much those. All right.
Hey, Rick,
Yeah.
here's something that's a similar idea. It's a cap for your coffee mug.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is just with a 3/4 inch, but same idea, using up some scraps. You
Yeah.
can decorate, all
So-
sorts, simple, fun,
Yep.
and
And
keep your coffee warm.
yeah. All right. So little tea light holder or honey dipper?
Honey
You like-
dipper,
Tea light.
tea light.
I got multiple tea lights. All right. We'll see if I can remember how to do
Spice scoop.
Put a mason jar.
that. Huh? So this, I start out the exact same way, just with my blank with the centered on it. And then, I don't know why I drew that circle. Oh well. I drew a circle on it for some reason, I don't know why, but I'm not going to worry about that circle at the moment. right. I was just noting a split. It doesn't go in that deep. We'll figure it out. Front row might want to be careful.
Make that the bottom.
No,
Grab another piece.
no, because if I do it as the bottom, because this is kind of like those four-legged things.
Oh, you do the square.
So that, I like to do the square turn, the four-legged, but this one might not be conducive to that. Huh?
That's tough.
Well, yeah. We'll see.
Take a hammer and knock
Ooh.
off the thing and see how deep the crack
Wait a
is.
minute.
Secret.
Yeah,
Eileen's. Just dab a little Eileen's in there.
Crazy glue.
this one might need a lot of CA. I just noticed there's a whole lot of cracks in it.
I would suggest not using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not using that one.
No,
This is when you finally have to put it in the fire.
maybe.
It's like a honey
Square,
dipper
drill
to
the
me.
hole, put the key light in.
Well, yeah. No, it will not make a four-legged tea light, but I might do something with it later.
Yeah, God, for God's sakes, don't throw that piece away.
This one looks a lot better. I'm glad I brought an extra. And that's the thing, is when I'm doing these, I may cut up 20 blanks, but I may end up with, 15 finished pieces or 10 finished pieces. Because, just face it, I'm not starting with prime wood. It's scrap. So if it explodes on me, I don't get too excited about it and just move on. So.
Your jail stock's not locked.
What's that?
It's not locked, it's just moving away from it.
Yeah, I just wanted to move it back a little bit. All right. So when I'm doing these, first thing I do is I just face off the bottom, just flatten it out, just so that way, because with doing the four legs, need to have those points be pretty much the same spot level, so that way they don't wobble around. And if you miss that step, they wobble around. And then you end up going to the belt sander to flatten them out to get them to, yeah. I'm not sure exactly how I know that one. So. So, again, I start with the jaws all the way closed. And I do that so that I can measure my tenon, which is going to be on this side. This is the bottom. That'll be the top. But my tenon is going to be part of... So once I flip it around, I'm not going to bring it back around. I'm just going to use a very small tenon, but it's going to be a decoration that's used as a tenon. So I just need to make sure, and with this piece, I can see where that needs to be by just looking through and just judging it. So, all right. Oops. I was a step past where I need to be. I need to make a tenon on this side. So I can get the tailstock out of the way so I can work. And I do the exact same thing with this as what I did with the other one, is I just use my parting tool to go straight into the jaw and just stopping short of the jaw to give me a little tenon to hold on to. So the little tenon that I put on there is actually, yep, forgot my little tea light. But usually what I do is with that is I'll use that as part of a decoration for the cup that goes into the tea light. Because it's a little bit bigger, and until I cut out the hole for the tea light, it makes a nice little rim kind of thing.
So you don't just use expanding jaws, cut the hole for the tea light, and use expanding jaws instead of cutting a tenon?
I could, but this is just how I do it. I did it that way on one of the first ones I made, and I found that for me, setting it up to cut the hole, it goes just as quick using a tool as it does for me to set up and, like on my drill press or something, and drill a whole bunch of them. It doesn't save me a lot of time. But if I was doing it production where I had to make 100 a day, it probably would. By doing that and then just using like pin jaws to expand into it. That and my chuck is for a little jet. So I'm borrowing a chuck. I just put my jaws on a chuck. That'll fit this lathe. On mine, I have multiple jaws that I can pull from, but tonight I have one set. So just getting it in there and getting it nice and tight. Because like I said, that I'll use, because when I shape the top, I like to have it look like it's sitting in a metal cup. I don't know what they're called. Kind of a votive ramekin something. I'm not sure the proper term. That's much better. Now I have room to work. What I like to do is I like to start on the inside part first. Sometimes I'll shape the top, it depends. But I like to get the inside started so I can see where I'm going. And then I'll rough shape the outside. And when you're doing the four-legged guys, you see it catches the shavings on it. And so you can't, a lot of times I like to just stop short. And then that way I can pull these guys off so I can see, so I don't get too close to my edges. Because sometimes you get it really thin because you can't see what you're doing. And now that I have this kind of so that I can see inside and see the shape that I'm going to end up with, I'll partially shape the outside, get it close to shape. Oops. that one will take a little work. There we go. when I'm shaping, because I want to take this part out, I want to get a little more arch going. I got to come from the inside. If I try to go from the outside, a lot of times it pops it. And so I found that it's easier, once I get the general shape going, is to come from the inside out, and it cleans better for me. Might not be the right way to do it, but that's what works for me. So. A little more. All right. That one I'm mostly happy with. So a lot of times what I'll do with these also, now I'm not done inside yet, but is I'll finish the shaping when I'm done with the sandpaper, because then I don't break as many. But that's just me. The thing is, this center needs to be shorter than the legs. So I just need to shorten that up, and then I can refine the inside shape of that, bowl kind of thing. So. now to make the tenon on this side, I just use my parting tool. And I look in where the jaws are and estimate where the center, so when I open it up, I'll be able to grip the tenon with it. And it's usually about like that. And then like I said, so it doesn't stand out. I just cut a little couple. Now I would sand that and make everything nice and pretty. Whoops. But now, so where the tenon is, you don't see it. It blends in. So that way I don't got to go back. Whoops, little red.
Yeah, I'm in for that.
So now here's where it would be really handy to have a tea light for a guide. So that you know how big to make this hole. And then this is just a matter of just shaping it how you like it, whatever you want it to look like. I was thinking about going down in a little bit and then let's see. Yeah, this was horrible. um, First time I've turned in front of people, other than at the farm show, and there I'm just making snowmen. And those are kids. They don't know the difference. So,
Yeah, they do know they're snowmen. They do know they're snowman.
well, yeah, snowmen are fun with kids because when I'm doing it, I always forget what a snowman looks like, so they have to explain it to me.
It's a quarter off, so.
Yeah. So that's that. I would do more, but whatever.
I guess it's a good idea.
What's that?
It was a good idea.
Yeah.
Shape and style.
So the honey dippers, they're really simple and they're fun and fast. But what I do with those, I don't even know where I got to, is I have a piece of 2 mil tool steel, which works out really well for making the grooves in them. And there's 5 grooves. So a 2 mil cut in, and then you come over 2 mil and go in, come over 2 mil, and you do 5 of those inserts, make a bulb, and then the handle part is where it gets fun. You just shape it however you feel like shaping it. Most of the stuff you get, the $2 at the dollar store or whatever, they're just a single taper, and I think they're boring, so I like to do lots of different things. So,
You can put a finish on them.
yeah, on the honey dippers, those, I do 1 of 2. You can either use a shellac, or you can just use mineral oil, either one. So the shine juice works well. Mineral oil will work, but it depletes out quickly.
You can use a long oil finish too if you
Yeah.
let it cure for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What's long oil?
Like water locks or one of those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's several that you can.
Everything's food safety weight.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I'm serious.
it
There's no
is.
finish that is toxic. That is
Yeah.
not food safe.
It's
You just
toxic
have to
in
wait
the
for it
in
to
the raw
cure.
form, in the
Yeah.
liquid form. Once it's cured out, now if you're eating it, that's a different story. But food contact, it's all of the finishes that are available are pretty much food contact safe once they've cured. Now some of them cure in a matter of hours, and some are a matter of weeks or longer on some of them, depending on what they are. If you have something that has some toluene in it, I'm not doing anything with that. But it's hard to find
Besides,
it.
once you sold it, it's not your problem.
That's true.
Hey, don't put your name on the bottom of it.
When they get
Yeah, right.
sick, I look forward to them trying to sue me because it was the honey dipper that did it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and if you're putting anything on a honey dipper, the health benefits of the honey are going to outweigh anything on the honey dipper.
Correct. All that inflammation from the long oil will go down because of the honey.
Yeah. So, well, I hope you guys.
There you go.
See, now it's official. Look, you get their attention.
That's right. Or get someone with a big whistle. All right. For this next section of our is open shop where we can look at the products we brought, show and tell. But we also have the monthly challenge, which is fantasy. I know we have one online. I'm not sure if we have any others here. We have one back here. Okay. So we'll start with online. I think, Dave, you have one? You have some items to show?
Fantasy to share.
Fantasy to share. There you go.
Okay, that's something else I wanted to show. I do have a couple of Harry Potter wands. I don't know where they are. There they are. The top one is maple. The handle is textured. The bottom one is oak. The dark part in the oak on the far end is wood burned. The whole thing is the wood burning is a lot darker. It makes it look like bark. So just a couple of the top one I gave to my grandson for Christmas. The bottom one he gave to a friend for a birthday present.
Do you want to go into your other ones you have to show?
Yeah, if you got the new AAW, they were talking about some turnings for turning a mushroom, and what I like about AAW is that they are following up with what they said they're going to have things of various difficulties for people to try. And they had a mushroom, and I was thinking of Barbara Dill and the off-center turning, so I decided to do just some off-center turnings on them. And I also, the next picture, I believe, has the ones with, there's just 3 more off-center turnings. You can see they're fairly small. The tallest one's probably about 4.5 inches. I tried to get the off-center turning as much as possible. Show me the next picture. That's some that I made this past summer, actually last spring. I made quite a few of them, so my wife had probably about 15 of them out in groupings in the flower bed to get them to stand up. First of all, I finished them with boiled linseed oil. It's a good preservative. And what I also did is I drilled a hole in the bottom of each one. You can see they're all natural edge ones. I drilled a hole in the bottom of each one, and I put in about a 3.5 inch finishing nail, so that when you stuck them in the ground, they stayed. Those are a couple I made. The one on the left is about 6 inches with a 5-inch diameter. You can see the nails sticking out that I used. These were in the mulch all summer long. I took them out, sanded them off a little bit by hand, and put another coat of boiled linseed oil on. One of the other advantages of the boiled linseed oil is that if you want to paint them, that's what carvers put on their carvings before they do any painting. So what else can you do with these things? Well, the smaller ones you can also put a nail in and stick them in like a planter, either indoors or outdoors. If you have various woods, various sizes, 3 different woods, 3 different sizes, they make a nice grouping on a shelf or something like that. That's all I got, folks.
Questions for Dave? Mike, you want to do yours next? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I had a free weekend, free afternoon, and so for the fantasy challenge, I made a sword. It's just a slab of cherry, about a little over 3/4 thick, I believe. And the turned pieces are the crossbar, the handle, and the pommel. What was interesting was I wanted the whole thing to be cherry. This was a bottle stopper blank that I was convinced was cherry, except the finishing coat they had on it made it look a lot darker, so it ended up being maple. So, just a fun little quick challenge, and spent a good afternoon on it.
Nice.
Yeah, like it.
Are we gonna see a future challenge of make a competing sword?
No, no, no. This one will fall apart.
And I love the scabbard.
How did you shape the blade?
Let's have a duel.
The blade was shaped with using a router, just chamfer bit, and then I cut a fuller with a cove bit.
Nice.
And that's
Yeah.
it. And the cutoffs from the sides, from the taper, ended up being the handle and the crossbar.
Oh.
So I was
Rick,
able
you
to.
like that?
Yeah. You used up your scrap wood.
That's right. That's right.
That's pretty cool.
So that's my challenge.
It's a scrappy little beast.
Next. Who else has one?
lot of people.
Yeah, sure, come on up.
Oh, sorry, did I steal your thunder?
Or get your leg.
Let's switch the view.
I think at the last work meeting they had here, there was some kind of U. Is that what it's called? Wood. And I just loved the pattern of it, so I made this little bowl. And then I had a little piece left over, so I made the lid for it. It's pretty tight. And the little finial. The finial at one time was about this big, but it blew apart, so now it went down a little bit smaller. And I think it looks a little bit better on this end than the big tall one anyway. And then it's the first time I ever burned lines in it, and I did that with copper wire. And pretty smoky. This piece here was basically an experiment. I got the inspiration of the general shape from Navajo pottery I saw when I was on a reservation a year ago, and I liked that. So I wanted to start doing a little bit more embellishment. So experimenting, I started burning this in here. When I'm burning it, I had it in my lap like this, and I'm burning down like this. So I didn't, first time I did it, so I didn't have any smoke evacuation. Didn't have any fan, nothing. So I'm like, come straight. Had a flashback from 1976 Jethro Tull concert. So I go, I had to get rid of that. So I went and got my regulator that I had on when I would spray paint cars or do any like airbrushing. So I did that, worked it out, got some Gilder's paste inspired by the gentleman in the back. They always bring in these very colorful things. So I kind of wanted to put a little color into it. I changed the stained this part here, and this is just a natural finish. So that's my first experiment into pyrography. So I will continue to try to do a little bit more embellishment. So that was that.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Mike, what did you burn with? Like one of those iron? One of those
I bought it's called True Art pyrography pen, and it's a 2-pen system, and it's like 60 watts. And if you turned it up really high, once you touch it, I mean, it exploded into flames. So it was pretty smoky in the house. All right.
Go ahead, Barry.
Go ahead, Barry.
This was not brought to put things in, to put things in here. This was about 20 years ago. I bought 2 packages of skewers. They're bamboo skewers. And they've laid in a box in my garage all those years. And a couple of months ago, almost like laying awake in bed,
Could put those in the fire.
I just got obsessed with the idea of making a trash can. And while they are individually pretty flimsy, when you make the assembly with 72 of those boys, it was a real exercise in indexing on my, I did 36 and then just visually drilled between those, so it's been drilled through here. And the same with the top. That's probably about 5 laminations of oak so that it had stiffness, so it wouldn't fracture or anything. The bottom is one piece.
Barry, you didn't drill through the top, but you did drill through the bottom. Why?
At first I didn't, and I tried to, you put getting the first one in is a piece of cake. Second one, not so much. All of a sudden, even with the lathe holding this in a pair of jumbo jaws and this in a chuck, I just couldn't. You're bending these so far that you can no longer. This is I think it was like about a 10-degree angle in there, and I couldn't do it. So I went ahead and the holes were already down about a ½ inch deep. I just went ahead and with the hand drill, just took them through the rest of the way, and just with it still back on the lathe, just fed them in. Much easier. I don't like the look of the holes in the bottom,
Put
but
a new bottom on it.
yeah, I could.
If you flip this thing upside down, you may
What's
have,
that?
If you flip it upside down, you might have a nice lampshade.
Yeah, put a light in it.
Or if we were doing saber battles with the wooden sabers, like Monty Python, Holy Grail or something, you know?
We can use it to the Saturday shop time.
The other thing is, this was actually inspired by Mike's spiky vessels, or what were they, bottles? Little miniature urns that had these spikes carved in them. And this was just 18 segments that were like this, and just cut them with a calculated compound angle so that they would glue together nicely. And the biggest mistake was, you can see the joint is perpendicular to the surface. And you really can't make a true circle out of 18 facets. You know, they're going to be running between, you're going to expose some Purple Heart or something when you go in. Even going in at, this is a 45-degree angle, even going in perpendicular to the surface, you're trying to put a curve on a straight line, basically. Whereas had I glued these together with the laminates at 45 degrees, I could just go in straight perpendicular to the surface, and I'd be hitting only maple. So I did take great pains to get them all at the same height so that they weren't jumpy going around, but to no avail when they aren't perpendicular to the surface.
Inside is smooth and outside, how did you do the outside? Just by digging into the channel?
Well,
it seems like there's a curve on the Purple Heart.
Yeah, well, it was done, the grooves that are circumferential were turned.
Yeah.
The grooves that are azimuthal or whatever were done by a router. I'm sorry, not a router, a Fordham tool that I had, a saber tooth, or a saber, one of those structured carbide things. Yeah. And it was a 3/8 that I just ran repeatedly until it was,
and then you just did a lot of sanding.
About the right look. Anything else?
Great.
Oh, and I have a cautionary tale. Nothing to do with this. Every so often, vacuum the steel dust from the base of your grinder. In particular, if you happen to do any carbon steel, I have a number of old Buckbrother tools that I have reground for different special shapes and stuff. And so mixed in with my high-speed steel dust at the base of the grinder is a lot of carbon steel dust. And I was sharpening, and carbon steel makes a lot of sparks when you're grinding it. And I was grinding a piece of carbon steel, and I began to, it was pretty mind-bending. Anybody ever light steel wool?
Yeah.
It was like slow motion steel wool. It was this, I don't know, a 1/4 inch thick of powder that was probably as big as 5 inches long and 1 inch wide. And it was just like watching one of the California fires just move. It was just this glowing. And I think if I didn't make a fire break, I might have had a fire in my shop. So every so often, if you're going to be making sparks with your grinder, vacuum the old stuff off the base or do something to cover it so you don't catch your garage on fire, your shop on fire.
Who's next?
Well, I did the Ikebana,
Ikebana,
or whatever things, and I also did what you did. It's all scrap wood. This is a mystery wood. I'm not sure what this is. Maybe ash.
Stick them on the.
Not quite sure what that is. And then the thing goes in like that. And the way I did it was, I very seldom use tenons on anything besides spindles. I just don't do it. But in this case, I kind of needed to do it, so I would put a tenon on here so I could drill a hole, and then took the chuck and expanded it, and from there I was able to shape everything. And this is the first one I did, and once I did that, I could be banging these things out all day long. They're really easy to do. But this was the only piece that I had that was 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches thick. So the other ones, more scrap wood, but I had to do some glue ups. So walnut on the top, Osage orange on the bottom. And I don't know if the people will ever see the inside, but one thing I like about the inside is you get to see what's going on in there.
Yeah, hold it to the camera.
And again, this thing goes in there like that. And someone told me one time, when you're doing these things, you should always kind of put an angle there. So when the people are going to be pouring water in there, so when you pour the water in, if it slops over, it'll hit this and go in rather than going out onto the table or whatever. And then using the same scrap wood really, but just doing a reverse. The walnut on the bottom and the Osage orange on the top. I'm doing that. Like I said, once you get rolling on these things, you could bang them out all day long. But I only wanted to do 3. So do I give these to you?
Yeah, I'll take them.
Okay.
Any questions?
I can't remember what I finished these things with. It's the wax that has abrasive stuff in it, whatever you call that.
Triple E shine is one of them.
And that's just real quick and easy.
Put them in the bowl or the trash can.
Okay.
It says this.
No. Okay. How do you know?
Well,
I'll take your word for it.
all right. So I made this for a friend of mine who's a pastor, and he's working on his master's degree in biblical Hebrew.
Okay.
So that's this is Hebrew up here, and I learned that Hebrew is read right to left. Figured that out when I put it into Google Translate, and it started over there and worked this way.
That's what it does.
So this is, again, it's scrap wood. It's not my scrap wood. It's from a wood shop that they make chair backs. So they have scrap wood. So they had, this started out as 5/4. It was 3 pieces, or 6/4 rather. And then the crosses, what I wanted to use olive wood, but when I went to go get the olive wood, it all looked like it was just bland. It didn't have character to it, which was odd to me. But the pieces that were available
Depends where
were,
it came from.
huh?
It depends where it came
Yeah, it was just blah, and it didn't speak to me. So I found this piece, and it's Shadua, which is a West African hardwood, because it had nice, pretty grain. So glued them up, did the inlay, and then I had to go down to John's lathe because my 12-inch jet won't turn this one. So I got to use a big lathe for the first time, and that was fun. So it's inlaid, and then I do have a little bit of epoxy shadow around the outside because when I made the crosses, they were 7/16 instead of 1/2 inch, and the top or bottom bearing router bit, smallest one they come in is 1/2 inch. Whoops. So design modification.
How thick are the inlays?
They were 3/4.
Or does that go all the way through?
No, it does not.
Oh, okay.
They started out as 3/4.
Oh, okay.
So I inlaid all the way down because I didn't know how deep I was going to go. All I knew is I didn't want it to come the whole way through.
So you inlaid it while it was still a flat plate?
Still a flat plate, yeah. And after I had the holes cut in it, I realized that this cross should have been over here about a ½ an inch to center it. Whoops.
No one noticed that until you just pointed it out.
Yeah, it gives it a little, dimension.
Yeah.
So,
Crucifixion's up on the hill.
yeah. And then, so the Hebrew, and then this is the English, and I'm assuming that they're the same. At least that's, through the Google Translate stuff. And actually, then I went on Etsy and looked at Hebrew blessings. And this was that. And then it said what it was in English. So I'm trusting that it's what it really says. And Friday morning, I'll find out if it really does or not. No, this is all by hand with pyrography pen. So,
or something.
yeah.
Excellent lettering.
Huh?
I
So,
thought you did a laser on it.
no, it was all by hand. And when I brought it home to show my daughter, she's like, "Did you get a laser engraver?" I said, "No." I said, "I did it by hand." She's like, "No, you didn't. Your handwriting sucks." I'm like, "Well, yeah, it does, but if I take my time." But this is closer to my real handwriting. When I signed it on the back. So, but I think he'll like it.
Yeah. Who's next?
It's not a pie plate, it's a frying plate. It's a plate used for frying of things, like pie rod or.
Well,
Thank you for saying that. Chris.
let's see.
Bless your heart.
I made these out of a piece of firewood that I got from Florida. It's actually called carrot wood, which was imported back in the 50s as ornamental trees for
Put them on.
the lawns down in Florida back 70 some years ago. So now these trees are getting huge. And they got a project going on to rid Florida of these species of wood because
What's the
they're
name of
taking over the mangroves.
What's the name of the wood?
This is what?
What's the species of wood?
It's carrot wood for short. I don't know what the botanical name is. Probably can't pronounce it anyway. It's about that long. But
In what form?
it's a hardwood. And it's almost petrified now. It's been sitting out in the yard for about 4 years. And it's very dense wood. They use it for construction in Australia, like similar to our pine trees here. But it's beautiful wood. I don't know why they're burning it down there. They're just cutting them down and get rid of them.
Oh, it's native to Florida?
But it really comes up beautiful. Some of these are actually coming up yellow and orange when you cut them. So I wasn't shooting for the skinny long stems because I'd probably break it off anyway. But it was fun to work with.
Okay.
That's it.
Who else? Anyone else?
What did you use as a finish?
What's the finish, Jack?
Jack, what was the finish?
Oh, I just used sanding sealer.
Sanding sealer.
This is my first attempt at a live edge bowl.
Yeah.
Not real fancy, but
Yeah, it is.
I'm
It's
happy with
very,
it. It at least is in one piece and looked pretty nice. So,
Let's spin it around.
yeah. Kind of like the character in Park anyway that way. So.
What'd you use for a finish?
It's got poly on it. Sanding sealer and then poly.
Oil base?
Wheelbase? I guess. I'm not really sure. Just
Did it smell awful and stick to your picture?
yeah, it's polyurethane, gloss polyurethane.
Did you glue the wood on?
No, that's one of the reasons I put the poly on it, because I thought that would keep the bark on there, make it a little more hard and solid. So far, it's been doing pretty good. It's banged around a little and it's stayed there. But it was just a piece I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Thank you,
So I've been turning since August, so there are probably people who have turned more years than I have weeks in the room. But I've been turning mostly little bowls, and these are two fairly recent ones that I'm pretty happy with. This is walnut. I've been doing mortises just to play with that rather than tenons for a while. And that's a piece of wood I got in the pile over there. This is a piece of maple. I like burning the piece in. I did that with a piece of wire. And they're finished with the Yorkshire grid that the guy showed last month, which I really liked. Works really well on the maple, particularly.
Did you put anything over top of Yorkshire? Anything over the Yorkshire grid?
No.
Oh, just straight up?
Just finished that.
Very good. This is the Christmas or birthday presents I have for my grandchildren for this year. Each one went down to my shop, picked out a piece that I started 2 years ago. I finally finished it. Also realized how badly I originally did it because I just started about 2 years ago. So some of them I had to really work just to get it decent. And some of them started off really, really thin right off the bat. So these are the 5 that I did. On the cross grain box, this is my first lidded cross grain box that I did. I made it loose so that it wouldn't swell and gave it a little bit of character on the inside. I also kind of messed up on the bottom a little bit, and I don't think you'll be able to see it very well, but I did a little bit of texturing right in the very dead center. See a little bit. There it goes. Well, anyhow. There it is.
What part is messed up?
Well, when I was chiseling off the nib, it was too thick, and when I tapped it, it broke off and went down into my bowl a little bit, too far to sand out. So I filled it in with some wood chips and wood glue, and then tried to do a little bit of coloration on it, and then did texturing. The texturing tool I have is an old leather tool with the little spikes around the edge, and that's actually what my texturing tool was. So it was an experiment. So that's my the gifts that they picked out, and I finished for them. This is all done with. I was experimenting with my own Yorkshire grit type material, as well as my own polishing paste with mineral oil and beeswax, and that's what these are all in. I did that for my the polishing or the Yorkshire grit type material to get a good finish, and then over top of that I did a polishing paste and buffed it out. And that's okay. Thank you.
So once a year I make a bowl. Prove that I can.
Without holes in it.
Prove that I can. This year I made 2. Well, I made a bowl, and I don't know, maybe that's a dish. They're both cherry. I'm one of those people who you might imagine likes to go very thin. If it's a good solid piece of wood, it'll hold up. I just like the feeling of lightness. I like to make shapes that are light. So that's that. One, it's got a little foot on it. And this was a piece I was going to do something different with. And then this beautiful flame was in the center of it. And I was like, oh, I have to make a dish. Because that's all you can do with this. You can't pierce through that gorgeous flame. And so I made I don't know, what do you use a dish for? Do any of you guys, for what?
Candy.
It doesn't have a spout. How are you going to use it? Yeah, I don't know what you use a dish for, but it's pretty to look at. So maybe it's just like a, look here. And it's especially nice in one of these plastic holders. Yeah, that's especially. Anyway, it's a pretty piece of wood. It's pretty on the front, and it's pretty on the back.
Is that cherry also?
Yeah, this is cherry also.
Was that green or dry, Thomas?
This was dry. Yeah. So.
You could try doing some pyrography on it.
It's not big enough for a piece of pie, so you can't do pyrography on it. You could do pyrography on it, but pyrography would definitely not be something you could do on it, because there's no place for the pie. It could be a pie dish for like an individual pie for you, Mike. Mike's little individual pie. So that's all I got.
Any others? Online? Don't see anything? All right.
Oh, hold on.
Yep, got one hand there.
Randy?
Randy, I think, right?
Yes, I was intrigued by Barbara Dill's presentation in the coffee clutch. And so I had to, oops, let me get rid of my background here. I had to get her book, Multi-Axis Turnings. I've been reading through it, and it's quite interesting how she presents the different combinations of things. It's quite interesting. So that's all I have for today. I do have a question, though. Barry, do you have Miriam's contact information?
Who's?
Miriam.
Miriam Wasserwasser.
Oh, yes. I'll send it to you.
Could you send it to me, or could you post it in the chat?
He'll send it to you.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you.
All right.
One more.
One more?
You're looking at me because you don't have hands up. Jim, you can't stop looking at me. Jim Bowman.
Okay, Jim Bowman. You're muted.
You're muted.
Well, that's a gift to you all for me to be muted. So
I didn't want to say that.
I thought I'd beat you to the draw. Somebody had Randy had to mention Barbara. Oops. Hang on, got to get rid of this crap here. Somebody had to mention Barbara Dill, and I have been excited about off-center turning. And this was the first piece I did. This is a mock-up piece, but I liked it that much that I kept it as a piece. And I intend to make it into a nice piece once again. This wood was pretty nice. This is ambrosia maple. And the other mock-up I have is, this is two views of the same thing. This is parallel turning, but off axis. So that's how you get the arcs. And then the bead is turned through the center. This is from old cedar. And I've been playing around with it. I don't have loaded in here, but I've been doing a lot of three-sided vases. And once you get your head wrapped around how you put which center where, it goes pretty good. Here is one that was made of multiple wood chunks. And now there's so much you can try to wrap your head around. I was trying to figure out what do we need to do to get make it equilateral pieces of wood that then the curves would go through it the right direction, but my brain just wouldn't go there, so I just turned it like this. So, yeah, that's just some of the fun I've been having. So.
Very good. Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Yes, Thomas.
Can I just make a plug? If you're interested in seeing multi-axis work, Mark Spheri's show is still up at the Museum of Art and Wood down in Philadelphia till, I want to say, he's doing a talk on February 16th, I think. So that might be the end of the show. It's colossal and regular sized work. So big sculptural pieces and very small, intimate. It's called La Familia, so there's a lot of figure work in it, but it's all multi-axis stuff. And it shows you what's possible in multi-axis stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to. He and Barbara Dill may have the corner on the market. She does a particular thing, but he's taking it really in a lot of different directions. I think the pieces that are busts, figures are pretty incredible when you think of multi-axis work. There's a lot of carving and stuff too, but if you're a fan of multi-axis work, it's a pretty significant show and well worth seeing. And all the work in the show was made just for this show, so it's not like a retrospective or anything like that.
All right. Thank you. Anything else? Last time. All right. Thank you. Whoops. Got one more.
Another thing. Speaking of Mark Seafree, he also has a show at the Michener Museum that goes until, I think it's May something, and it's his flowers, and he has carved them, and it's again multi-axis stuff.
Okay.
Where's that?
It's at the Michener Museum in Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
Doylestown. Okay.
Is that where they have the show?
That's where the flower. So he did two shows. That one's called.
He's got two.
He built those. He made those flowers for his son's wedding because they couldn't have real flowers where the wedding was. So he started making flowers, and this is sort of the culmination of a lot of that, and then expanding on that work. So it's also a wonderful show. Michener Museum's a place. If you haven't been there, you should go. If you're a tool person, definitely go. It's an incredible museum.
Well, thank you. Thanks, both of you. All right.
Is that a full time? Is that permanent at the Michener, or is it just a show truck?
No, it's just through. I think it's through April, but I might be wrong about the dates. It's just installation.
I think it goes till May something.
May. Okay.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Just a quick reminder on next month's challenge. It's an item with light. Metallic. Oh, I'm sorry. Metallic. So something with metallic. So you guys are all tools and love metal. So
Saturday open shop.
And Saturday open shop is this Saturday. Okay. Just a reminder for that. And thank you everyone for being patient with me, and have a great turning week and month. Take care.